let's see. Capcom's built for PlayStation. PC gamers made them pay. Well, looks like we got some Capcom news, apparently. We all know this is not good news, at least from Bellular News. Can't wait to hear this.
Pretty much a year for us to get to this point, and honestly, Capcom should be kind of ashamed they haven't been able to do this sooner. But here's the story, right? Monster Hunter Wilds. We're just about 11 months in. It was the 4th best-selling game of 2025, but it probably would have been higher if its sales numbers didn't fall off a cliff.
Yep.
They've literally talked about how their sales fell off a cliff.
Jesus. Q3. Monster Hunter Wilds surpassed 11 million units accumulated. Damn, dude, really? That's how many units they've sold or so? Yikes.
It was being outsold by other Monster Hunter games from the past. It was being outsold by remakes and remasters that they'd done. And for many people, the reason was obvious. The PC performance. It was shambolic, it was holding the game back. But now we get to talk about things changing. Because despite viral theories on, fixing performance and what the issue was, well, it now turns out that Capcom took some time, tried to knuckle down into the PC-specific issues, and they've actually made progress. But it is a goddamn shame that it's taken this long for something to happen.
It almost took a goddamn year to fix this goddamn game, huh? But they were so busy shoving you guys microtransactions, though. They were busy with that.
As we've now learned, right as this new and well-received update is marking the beginning of, well, the end, actually, for the base game of Monster Hunter Wilds, Capcom is hoping that they're ready for the future. That's a future that will see them asking you for more money. So if they're going to do that with any credibility, they'll have had to have got this right. So
I'm not paying for this. I'm not playing it. I'm not downloading it. I'm not installing it on my computer. No.
to start us off, by now, we have covered the Monster Hunter Wilds story so many times on this channel. Basically, here's how it all happened. Capcom needed a win to end their financial year and to clear a big hole in their expected finances. Their reward for clearing this hole was continuing their streak of 10% or more, I believe it was either revenue or profit growth, that they've been having for a decade. So it was big for their corporate story. And you know what? Wilds was a staggering financial success with over 10 million sales in its launch month. But PC players were rightly goddamn furious with the shambolic performance, and that really has not changed over time. Now, player numbers for the game have been relatively stable, and reviews mostly are coming from players who are seriously invested in the game. At least by this late stage, it's often people with 100+ hours in the game. But as 2025's patches rolled on, well, the patches didn't really move the performance needle enough to turn those reviews into positive ones. And while the hardcore stayed with the game, the problem was that nobody really came to the game. You see, the PlayStation audience that Capcom was kind of building this game for, that they literally said they were building this game for, didn't actually show up. And that's what—
Wait. Since the main platform is the PlayStation 5, we had to take that into consideration and determine whether we could achieve the initial sales figures of 10 million units. So you're telling me that they were trying to make this game for PlayStation, but then the people on PlayStation didn't show up and it's just mostly on PC.
Why the bad PC performance hurt them so much. They were banking on PS5 being their main platform, as it had been for prior games. Basically, without that, sales flatlined. And we recently found out that as 2025 ended, Capcom had reached 11 million sales for Wilds. Now we can do the maths there. 10 million in a month, and then another million in a year. That's bad.
So they only did 10 million sale units on the initial launch of it, but only 1 million throughout the entire year. Yeah, that is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. That's what happens when you fucking have a shitty game when you bring it out, Capcom. I'm just saying.
And it's no wonder that Capcom then unveiled plans for a Steam-only patch, one that would need to change the narrative. And today's big story is that patch is now here. The PC-specific performance patch has finally launched, and thus far the results are actually looking pretty damn good. So, the patch is targeting the CPU and GPU pain points that were there. It also brings new high-res textures as an option, and the options for the game are now more high fidelity, which means that people can just tweak way more variables to get the performance that they want. And the early signs from this are actually positive. I mean, the game is now reportedly stable enough to run well on a Steam Deck. I don't think any of us saw that coming, but it kind of makes sense maybe there were some performance optimizations that they've been making for the data-mined Switch 2 port that bled in, perhaps? Now, we're finding that overall, the FPS of the game has improved. Testing from Eurogamer suggests that overall, it is substantially better, and especially so for rigs that are closer to the minimum specs.
That's
now,
good.
as good as these
That's
moves
actually
are,
really
it
good.
probably won't help people like this reviewer who has put 200 hours into the game on a GPU with 2 gigs below minimum for its VRAM. That's quite rough, but at least the baseline is actually rising. Now, Capcom have also addressed the viral DLC check claims.
Oh,
this
yeah?
is a crazy one.
Let
A
me see.
Redditor found the game experiencing specific slowdowns depending on how much DLC was installed. Basically, it seemed there was a check that was causing CPU spikes that would then tank FPS. Now, Capcom's own testing and then Digital Foundry's testing confirmed that this bug only happened near DLC distribution NPCs in hubs, and that it didn't happen anywhere else. So it certainly doesn't seem that was causing all the problems, though it has been patched out. Where we are now, though, is still not a perfect place. This is not going to be the last PC-specific update.
Of course it's not.
There are some LOD load-in changes that didn't make the stability cut for this patch, and those are going to arrive February 18th, which is just before the first anniversary of the game. And I think whenever all of that is in, that's when we'll finally see if players have overall changed their minds. But
It has not changed my mind whatsoever. 4 gigabytes of VRAM, time for an upgrade? True. That person is straight up still playing on that old GPU, man. Honestly, I think it's time for you to get that GPU upgrade, to be honest.
at least now I can say that the early signs of change are here and do look positive. So let's take a look at the numbers. Here's the overall review picture for Wilds. We can see that it's really quite shit, and since May, big surges of negative reviews hit around every patch release. And that's players seeing the performance changes they had hoped for not being there. Now though, we actually see that positive reviews are outpacing negative reviews again. And checking the SteamDB review chart, we see that from a peak of 165,000 negative reviews the day before the PC performance patch, that the game hasn't just gained 1,200 positive reviews, it's actually lost more than 500 negative ones. So that's players who previously left a negative review actually changing them. Now, you may hear that and think, well, yeah, of course, the problem was solved. People obviously changed their review. If only. It's actually vanishingly rare that
Delete your negative reviews now that the game has been fixed. No longer need fake frames, aka FrameGen, to run on any modern PCs. Capcom, delete negative reviews, please. Let's make Monster Hunter Wilds great again. Some people, I swear.
players will go back and change a review that they left. So for 500 of those to flip is a genuinely good sign. And it is the sign that Capcom needs, because to drive growth in this game again and to make it what they need it to be financially, they need to show potential customers that players are already happy. You're not going to buy a game when its review trend is bad, but if the recent reviews end up being very positive, yeah, then they're going to get a shitload of sales. The good side of that is they're financially rewarded for fixing the performance issues, because their reputation genuinely was killing their sales. But there will be limits to the effectiveness of this. You see, English reviews are about to cross the threshold back to being positive, being 67% positive at the time of writing, and needing around 2,500 reviews to change that. Now, Chinese reviews, which are 30% of the total score, they're not happy. They're still sitting at 19% positive overall.
Christ.
Now, generally speaking, Chinese language reviews are a fair bit more harsh, and they are especially harsh on performance. And of course, the harshest reviews are coming from some of the most dedicated players, people with 100 hours or more. Changing that stuff around will take substantial effort, especially because performance...
Hey man, then Chinese players don't mess around. You fuck up their PC performance, they're gonna screw you over real hard.
changes may not be enough. There are other issues with the game. And that's because a lot of players, since day one, have simply not liked the direction that Wilds went in as a game.
Facts, 100%. There are a lot of things that's wrong with this game. The problem is they streamlined the game a little too much.
And while there have been some concessions towards endgame content in the patches before Christmas, that really hasn't changed massively, at least to this point. So right now, the devs are fixing what they can whilst delivering the live service. And while that's good, it certainly isn't new content. And for the people who are okay with the performance but are just tired of the content, well, things are probably not going to look radically better, I'd say, for quite some time indeed. And that's because, Well, making
CN didn't have the latest GPU. Most of them was still playing on the 20 series. Oh, is that the reason why? I can see why.
Content for a game that barely works and actively makes people angry is really silly. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket with water. But once that stability is there, well, then Wilds will be able to take its place in Capcom's library as an evergreen title. And that's where I am really glad that we basically looked into all of Capcom's financial reports, because we can see how the company succeeds.
That's
so
true.
There's a really funny thing about Capcom, right? They effectively have proved that they don't need Wilds to succeed right now. And that's kind of helpful because their quarterly update on sales for the game reveals that even with a 45% discount...
Freaking Devil May Cry is still up there, though. That is the most craziest thing, that Devil May Cry is still the highest. So I can see why that apparently rumor has it or so during the state of play or so. Probably when this video is probably uploaded or so, we already seen the state of play. But apparently this is before the state of play and everything. We saw a video or so that apparently like there's rumor has it that a Devil May Cry 6 is being announced. So I can see why, looking at the unit sales ranking at the moment. You still got Resident Evil still high up. Street Fighter 6 is still like up there.
Over Black Friday, they've only sold 350k copies in the last few months. For a game of this scale, the number 4 seller of 2025, that is god-awful. Now, the sales are improving, but with no major console uptake and lagging PC sales because of performance, there's really nothing to drive growth in the short term. But here's the thing. That's not really what Capcom are playing. Though, of course, it was the game that they were playing last year because they needed massive day one sales to climb themselves out of financial hole. Just another example of how being a publicly traded company that's got to do a report every quarter maybe doesn't set the best incentives for the customer. Maybe it's as if it's all about pleasing the shareholders and not the customers, even though it's the customers who hand over money. That being the thing that the shareholders should actually want. Anyway, all of that being a bit moronic aside, here's the thing. Even with this game being in a shit state, this has actually still been one of the best years for sales that they've ever had. They had a 13.5% increase in game sales, up to 34.64 million worldwide units, and that's all from their library. It's the likes of, say, the Resident Evil series getting a big boost ahead of Requiem's launch. I mean, come on, any sane person sees that Leon Kennedy's coming back and will immediately want to just play 4 again. You've also got the continued impact of Monster Hunter Rise, Street Fighter 6, and Devil May Cry, which are all doing fairly well, and all that brought together means that even without Requiem launching soon, well, they're actually in a pretty good financial position, a good sales position, because their library is just that strong. Obviously, if Requiem is good and it doesn't have the sorts of issues that Monster Hunter has had, then they will have absolutely just crazy good financial performance, probably. But returning to Monster Hunter, Wilds is going to contribute long term. That's basically how Capcom works. That's how they get their sales. And that's the same way that the expansion, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, is currently outselling Wilds. That shows you just how strong the long tail of these games is. And I think it shows you what could be happening for Wilds once it's no longer a technical shit show. And it absolutely shows us the direction Capcom is heading in. Where are we at then? Well, Capcom can't go back in time. They can't use hindsight to warn their teams that building Wilds PlayStation first, neglecting PC optimization to hit their target release date, would have messy, terrible consequences. The fixes that people hoped for have actually arrived. It took a year. For some people, that's unacceptable.
Yep.
For me, it is unacceptable. I just think it's insane that people spent good, hard-earned money for that game the day that it came out, and that it has taken so long for those fixes to arrive. It certainly speaks to the engineering problems that perhaps existed underneath that game. But Capcom are not a company that exclusively thinks in the short term, and it seems they're learning lessons as they go. As an example, they've told investors that they, quote, do not anticipate similar risks, and they've called out developing, quote,
we're developing the game to provide a smooth gaming experience across a wide range of PC specifications. So now you're telling me now they care about the PC players now, since the whole entire Monster Hunter literally completely backfired on them, specifically on the PC side of things. Now they say they do care. I'm like, oh shit, oh, we're so sorry, PC players. Don't worry, we will take more time or so for specification. I'm just kind of like, ugh. I'm like, that's fine and everything like that, but the problem is, it's like, Remember what made Monster Hunter Monster Hunter at the end of the day. That's all I really care about, you know?
A smooth gaming experience across a wide range of PC specifications. Now, a lot of that does sound like investor wank.
Yeah, of course.
But when they're talking about PC performance to their investors, well, look, who does the C-suite really work to serve? The investors. They're probably talking about this because they know it will move the numbers that they want to move and make the line go up. So they clearly know that the PC build of Wilds was a problem. And now that those problems are broadly fixed, it means that the base game of Wilds can essentially end. And while the performance patches will continue, and there's a final set of endgame content updates coming, this summer will mark the announcement of Capcom's inevitable large-scale expansion for the game. And
yeah, because the only reason why they're fixing it is because the expansion is coming pretty soon. That's the reason why. They want more numbers. They want a bigger sales number, so...
As long as they've learned their lessons and don't introduce fun, creative, new technical problems for this paid DLC, then they may end up in a position to succeed in the long
Most of their audiences are on PC.
run with Wilds.
You can't just say, because he just literally just said it backfired on him. Literally, they literally backfired on Capcom. They were doing it for PlayStation, but most of their money sales were literally on PC.
Both financially and with player sentiment. But before any of that happens, Resi 9 is going to happen. And Capcom, if you mess around, Leon, and if that game ends up being a shit show, you'll have me to answer to, which is really not much of a threat. Anyway, I'll be looking at that one very closely. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you should check out this one next.
It's very interesting, to be honest. Yeah, because the update is coming for the February update for the PC optimization that's happening right now, and plus also the announcement that probably at Summer Game Fest we'll probably have the announcement for the expansion for Monster Hunter Wilds as well. Am I gonna play it? No, I'm not, because I don't really care at the end of the day. So, like I said specifically, it's just the game itself. There's just too many other problems with the game generally besides the optimization shit. So, honestly, I just didn't enjoy it. The way how they were going, there are other stuff that's wrong with it. So, what's the comment say? Waiting a year plus for basic functionalities, nothing positive about that. The cracked version of Resident Evil 4 Remake runs better. Classic example of screwing over your paid customers. And they care so much for PC players that they're removing de novo, and instead of the engine protector, which has the worst performance, just look at the mess of Resident Evil 4 Remake. That's all fine and dandy, but I still remember the performance is acceptable to us, so they can suck it. Next time release it optimized, and then we'll see. The reason I haven't bought it yet, works like shit for friends. Took them a year for Monster Hunter, while Dragon's Dogma is rotting away. Take notes, Rockstar. Half-assed PC ports are no longer acceptable. That's very true. That's actually very true. Only took 11 months, all the trust that they built. Yeah, they pretty much squandered all the trust that they did. Shut your bitch ass up, Dubstep, before I deep throat your mom in a second with my Monster Hunter longsword, okay? Anyways, but yeah. Honestly, yeah, like I said, they completely lost me as a customer to begin with Monster Hunter in general, just because performance is terrible for the PC launch for the game, and also on top of that, I'm just not a fan where they're going with the direction of the game in general. So unless they dial it back a little bit more on the streamlining on a lot of things, I'll just stick to the old ones in my personal opinion. So, but yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. And honestly, hashtag fucking fix heavy bowgun. So anyways, that's the end, and peace. We'll see what happens on Summer Game Fest about this game in general.